Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming to our Climate Action 101 workshop of our Sustainability Talks workshop series with the Library of San Diego. I'm Maria Saldana with the Sustainability and Mobility Department. I'm really excited to be here today. I am joined here by Marisa Westerfield and Melissa Lindgren, as well as library staff, Jacqueline in the back, and then we also have Morgan over here joining us from UCSD Extension. Anyone who takes all 5 of the different courses that we have in our series is eligible for a credit from UCSD Extension. So really exciting program that we've been doing here. This is our Climate Action 101 workshop, where we are going to be teaching about the different ways that the city is working to fight climate change and the ways that you as a citizen can get involved. So with that, I will go ahead and get started. So again, first off, today we're going to be talking a little bit about why are we doing this? What is the climate emergency, and why does the city care about climate change? Then we'll talk a little bit about climate equity. So what are the different communities that we should really be focusing our efforts on, and how can we make sure that all of the communities within San Diego stay thriving? We'll talk about the Climate Action Plan, which is the city's long-range planning document for climate action, and then how we're working to implement that plan. So to make sure that that plan doesn't just stay on the shelf, but is instead enacted, so that the citizens of San Diego really feel those benefits of climate action. And then we'll talk a little bit about how you can get involved. So what are the steps that you can take to ensure that we're all working together for our climate and our future? So first off, the climate emergency. So the City of San Diego led engagement in 2020 for the development of our Climate Action Plan. We heard from over 4,400 citizens about what they wanted to have within this plan. We heard from them that they were worried about heat waves, the air quality in their neighborhoods, different effects of resiliency, different extreme weather impacts, but really what they wanted to see was ambitious and aggressive action against climate change by the City of San Diego. That is the main reason that we formed a net zero goal for our climate action plan. So our 2022 climate action plan sets us on a path to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2035. So that means that within the 5 strategies of the climate action plan that we will be going through, we have chosen the most ambitious and most aggressive path within each of those. This is because we really acknowledge at the City of San Diego that climate change is an urgent issue, and we have a moral imperative to address this. There will be impacts of climate change potentially that we will see, including extreme weather events such as heat waves, droughts, and rainstorms. And we also acknowledge that these might impact some communities differently than other communities. So we need to be working across San Diego to really ensure that we are addressing the needs of our specific communities within climate action. So really all of climate action works toward that reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. But we also recognize that the average person isn't really noticing that reduction of greenhouse gas emissions in their life. And what they care about are really those core benefits of climate action. So again, things like how is the air quality in your neighborhood? Or how much job growth have we seen within green technology or green jobs? So we, within the Climate Action Plan, are also focused on improving those aspects for the citizens of San Diego. So what is climate equity? So climate equity is where environmental justice and social equity intersect. So we at the City of San Diego recognize that climate equity is really addressing the historical inequities suffered by people of color, allowing everyone to fairly share the same benefits and burdens from climate solutions, and to attain full and equal access to opportunity regardless of one's background and identity. So we at the City of San Diego, one of the ways that we have done this is really work with what we call our Climate Equity Working Group, which is a group of about 36 community-based organizations that are all across San Diego, but really specifically within these communities that you see here on the map that we address as our communities of concern. So communities of concern are areas that we have assessed to see less access to opportunities than some of the other communities in San Diego. So those communities here identified by the dark blue, slightly lighter blue, or slightly lightest blue are our communities of concern. We have worked to really center these workshops within our communities of concern so that we can really educate and empower everyone in San Diego on the benefits of climate action and what we as a city are doing to address this. We all need to really know what climate change is and know what climate action is, that we can all work together as the city to help address these issues. So again, some of the ways that the city addresses climate equity, first again is that climate equity index. So that tool that we developed in 2019 and then updated in 2021. And that helped us really identify what are the areas that we need to best focus resources for climate action. That was developed with our Climate Equity Working Group, which again is an informal group of community-based organizations within our communities of concern that help guide our department, the Sustainability and Mobility Department, to ensure that the implementation of our climate action plan is equitable and is addressing the needs of our residents. And again, community engagement is really how we centered climate equity from the beginning of the development of our climate action plan. We worked to ensure that we had a lot of engagement within our communities of concern, and it offered services in Spanish, Tagalog, Vietnamese, so that we were heard from a diverse group of audiences that really met the diversity within San Diego. So community engagement doesn't just stop at the climate action plan. We're also working to ensure that all of the different implementing steps of the climate action plan are founded with community engagement at their center. And then finally, we have the Climate Equity Fund. So this is a part of the city's budget, about $8 million, almost $9 million this coming year, that is set aside to spend on infrastructure improvements, specifically within our communities of concern. So last year, this went to upgrades at Willie Henderson Park, sidewalk improvements in communities in District 8 and District 9, as well as streetlight improvements. So different kinds of improvements around the city, but within our communities of concern, that really help to ensure that our city is more walkable, that you have parks that you can go to in your neighborhood that are of interest, and really just so that we're helping to, again, meet those needed infrastructure needs within our communities of concern. So if you're interested in this work, definitely come learn more from us at the city, sign up for our newsletter. But also there are so many organizations, including those in our Climate Equity Working Group, that can use support, whether it's through volunteers or through members. And wherever community you are in, whether it's here in San Ysidro or across the city of San Diego, there is likely a community-based organization working within your neighborhood to address environmental justice, climate equity, or just the general needs of your neighborhood. These are some ideas that you can see up on the screen behind me, but let us know, come and talk to us afterwards if there's any organizations or if you need any tips on any organization you would want to join. Please come and talk to us and we'll help you get started with finding one of those. And with that, I will pass it over to Marisa Westerfield.
Okay, so I'll be going over the city's climate action plan strategies. So we can think of greenhouse gas emissions in terms of how those pollutants are being emitted, and then we can create categories to talk about them. So for example, cars, trucks, airplanes, trains, all vehicles that use fossil fuels to move, they're in the transportation group. The power plants that generate electricity often use fossil fuels to operate, so energy generation is another category of emissions. San Diego's Climate Action Plan has separate strategies to deal with each category of emissions, and I'll be going over what the city is going to do in each of these strategies and also what you can do as well. So strategy 1 is decarbonization of the built environment, which is a mouthful. So the easy way to remember that is electrify everything. So the issue here is that burning natural gas releases a lot of pollutants. They're harmful both to the environment but also to your health. So the city's climate action plan goals are to eliminate about half of natural gas use in all buildings by 2030, and then to eliminate almost all of the rest of it by 2035, which is not a lot of time. So steps the city can take. We are committed to removing natural gas appliances from all city facilities and making them more energy efficient. And we are working on that right now. So we're working with consultants to see what it will take to make all of our own facilities more energy efficient, replace the natural gas appliances. That work is going to be going on for the next several years. We are amending the building code here in San Diego sometime this year so that any new building from now on out has to be all electric. But on the existing building side, and what you guys can do for this as well, if you are fortunate enough to own your own home, as your appliances reach the end of life, So your hot water heater, your clothes dryer, your stove, your oven, you should replace them with all electric appliances. Heat pump water heaters and air conditioning units or heating units that also operate by heat pump technology, they're super efficient and they can save you money on your energy bills in the long run. So you can check out the Rewiring America website. If you just Google that and go to it, they have an Inflation Reduction Act calculator, and you can figure out how much you can save in terms of tax credits and refunds just by purchasing all electric appliances to replace your own home appliances right now. If you don't own your home, if you rent your home as a lower cost fix, and if you're concerned about the health issues related to, like, say, natural gas burning in your home, you can replace your stovetop with an induction cooktop. That actually costs less than $200, works perfectly well. Again, you won't be burning gas in your home to cook. You can stop using your oven and use things instead like air fryers or hot pots or toaster ovens and replace a lot of the gas-operated oven use that way as well. Strategy 2 is access to clean and renewable energy. So this strategy is about giving you access to clean sources of energy. So if you've managed to make the switch, you're running all electrical appliances in your home, you want to know, is that electricity generated by natural gas, or is it generated from clean sources such as solar or hydro or wind power? San Diego Community Power was established in 2019. The goal is to provide 100% renewable energy by 2035. Right now, if you've been switched to SDCP, and you probably have, you would see it on your SDG&E utility bill every month, that now we're also members of San Diego Community Power. If you've been switched over, right now, 50% of your energy is guaranteed to be generated from clean renewable sources, and you have the option to sign up for a 100% clean energy plan for an additional monthly fee. But San Diego Community Power is working to make it possible for all of us to upgrade to that 100% clean renewable energy plan with less cost in the future, and that's something they'll be working on as we go forward. And we also want you to have access to clean sources of fuel for transportation. So if you make the switch to an electric vehicle, we want to make it easier for you to be able to find a charging station either for your car or your electric vehicle. So the city plans to install electric vehicle charging stations for public use at libraries and parks all across San Diego. Strategy 3, mobility and land use, focuses on the fact that gasoline-powered vehicles are the single biggest source of emissions in the city of San Diego. And there's absolutely no way we're going to slow down the pace of climate change unless we change the way that we get around the city. So we can replace gas-powered cars and trucks with electric vehicles, but that's only part of the solution. It's not going to fix the entire problem. So strategy 3 focuses on ways that the city can make it possible for you to replace some of your car trips, not necessarily all of them, with a different mode of transportation. So I guess I'll just ask anyway, who here uses a car to get anywhere? Like if you have to go somewhere, you drive. How many people are that way? Yeah. Is there anybody here who does not have a car and manages to make do walking or using public transportation? Yeah, that was like a rare, that was like a minor shot. And then what we're hoping to get is people to move to the category where they do a lot of their trips by car, but not all of their trips by car. So like I fall into that category. Does anybody else? Yeah. So for those of you who have replaced some of your trips by car with some other, where are you going and how are you getting there?
To work, I drive to the trolley station and then I take the trolley there.
Cool deal. You go.
Only to work only. The rest walk to the grocery store.
So you live in a good neighborhood for that?
Yes.
Yeah. And you do?
To work as well, I take the trolley or the bus.
Cool deal. So the goal here, what the city would like to do, is if we maybe provided better sidewalks or safer bus lanes or better transit options, right? We might make everybody willing to take a trip by something other than a car in the future. So like we're hoping to shift, I mean this is not huge, right? Like we're hoping to shift just to get people to take transit 10% of the time. Or maybe, do we have our bike? Yeah, we want to get up, this is the ambitious thing, 25% walking and 10% biking. of all the trips that we take. And again, if we were to do things like better sidewalks, bike lanes, increase the density of some of our city areas so that maybe you work in the same place that you live, or at least close to it, you don't have to drive every last place that you go. And that's what we're kind of hoping for. Strategy 4 is circular economy and clean communities. So the big thing that you're going to notice here is the green bin rollout that the city of San Diego is doing this year. So has anybody here received a new green bin and or compost pail? Yeah? So if you haven't gotten it yet, sometime this year, you're going to be receiving that from the city of San Diego. The issue here is that when you throw food away, it goes straight to the landfill. And it turns out that as food waste or other organic matter decomposes, it releases methane gas, which is a super potent greenhouse gas. So if we separate and compost that waste instead of sending it directly to the landfill, then we prevent that methane release. And we also can provide some good quality mulch that you can use in agriculture, other landscaping purposes. So that rollout is going to be super important. It'll be complicated to do the whole separate your food waste from everything else, but it'll be kind of like when we were all learning to recycle like our bottles and cans and paper. Like, we'll get used to it over time, and then we will do a really good job of preventing those methane emissions from the landfills as well. This strategy also includes ways to reduce waste overall, and it also looks into creating local food systems so that we can make healthy and inexpensive food available to more communities across San Diego. Strategy 5, resilient infrastructure and healthy ecosystems. This focuses on improving our natural resources, such as planting more trees and restoring some of our marshlands. Both of these actions actively absorb carbon from the atmosphere, so the other strategies that we have are about preventing the release of global greenhouse gases. But this is actually more of a strategy to try to extract them from the atmosphere when we can. They also provide other benefits like reducing heat, providing open space, and beautifying our city. So it's important for other things other than the carbon extraction. And the Pure Water San Diego program is important because, again, for local resources, this is going to make us rely less on importing water from other places and being able to supply our own. So here I'm going to take a moment to mention the Climate Resilient SD plan and explain how it differs from the Climate Action Plan. So the Climate Action Plan, which I've been describing right now, was developed by the Sustainability and Mobility Department, and it focuses on slowing down the pace of climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions. But as Mariah said, the impacts of climate change can already be felt today, especially by our more vulnerable communities. So figuring out how we can cope with current climate hazards, such as flooding and wildfires, is the focus of Climate Resilient SD. And it's the responsibility of a different resiliency team that is housed in the planning department to do this work. This slide is just to clarify some of the terms that get thrown around when people talk about climate change. So resilience, mitigation, and adaptation. Resilience is how we can make it possible to bounce back from a disruptive event like all the rains that we've been having. How can we deal with flooding? How can we we can work to prevent it, like making sure our storm drains are clean and making sure that our storm pumps are working well. But how can we make it possible to get back from that event really quickly so people aren't suffering through flooding a lot? Mitigation is what the Climate Action Plan focuses on, and that is focusing on reducing greenhouse gas emissions to slow down the pace of climate change, because it can always get worse. We would like that not to happen. And adaptation is how do we reduce the impacts from climate change related hazards in the future. And from this very, very schematic Venn diagram, what this is trying to show is that resilience and mitigation, they actually overlap. So there is a lot of stuff that the resiliency team and the climate action team can do together. A lot of that work is actually located in Strategy 5. So a lot of the stuff that both of our teams work on are the things like the restoring the marshlands or planting trees or things along those lines. But there are actually elements of the other strategies that the resilience team is interested in as well. All right, so now that we've talked through most of the strategies, this is a little reminder of our emissions projections. So the dotted line at the top here, that is where we stand in terms of greenhouse gas emissions if nobody does anything. The blue wedge, this drop, is the emissions reductions that we can expect to see from federal and state actions. And then the colored wedges here are the reductions that we are hoping to see over time. So this is showing years as we go on. And we are right there. We're hoping to drop our emissions over time. But what you can see is this light green wedge at the bottom is because even if we do everything we possibly can between strategies 1 through 5, that's still not going to get us all the way down to net zero. So strategy 6 is all about new ways that we might be able to maybe extract carbon, do other things to offset carbon emissions, and this is going to be the way that we're going to get all the way down to net zero. So we expect that partnerships are going to be an important part of the strategy. We are actively seeking partners in the private and educational research space for this work. If you guys have any suggestions, you know of anybody who would like to partner with the city for this, talk to us after this workshop or email us or whatever, get in contact because we are looking for people who can help us out here. And that is it for all of our strategies. I will now hand this over to Melissa.
Right, so now that we heard from Marisa going over the different strategies, now we want to talk about the implementation process for all of these strategies included in the Climate Action Plan. So I do want to start by mentioning that this Climate Action Plan is an update to a prior Climate Action Plan that the city released back in 2015 that also had a lot of goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But this new Climate Action Plan, within all the 6 strategies that Marisa explained, has 190 actions and 21 measures, making it a very big, comprehensive document. So in order to make sure that all of those actions and measures get addressed, the city also developed an implementation plan. So this implementation plan will serve as a guide for the city as to what steps to take and which of the 190 actions could be prioritized first over the next 5 years. And with supplementing this implementation plan is the implementation cost analysis. So this other document provides estimates as to how much will implementing all of these actions and measures will cost us and how much more funding will be needed to make sure they all get done. And then lastly, we also have the annual department work plans. So the city is divided into different teams and departments, and several of them are involved in addressing these actions. Like she mentioned, Marisa mentioned the composting bins, like that's environmental services department. So then every year they would have to create this document where they will identify which of these actions will they focus on for that fiscal year and how much money will be needed to make sure their work gets done. So it is a lot of documents, but they do help provide like a structure. They do help the city, keep accountability as to making sure that everything that's included in this plan does get done and there's nothing left behind. So the city has actually already begun doing a lot of the work that was mentioned in the Climate Action Plan, and some of the work and current projects include electrification assessments to phase out gas from buildings. The fleet electrification, the city already has a lot of its own vehicles that are already electric, and you might have already seen them around the roads. And then the REACH code. So the REACH code is starting next year, owning buildings being built in San Diego will be required to be fully electric. And then the organic waste recycling. A lot of communities have already seen or received their bins, and we're hoping that by the end of this year, maybe summer-ish, fall, hopefully everybody in San Diego could have their bin. And then the mobility team is working on releasing a mobility master plan, which is guided to transform the way we move around and promote other modes of transportation like walking and biking to make it easier to use that to travel around so we can depend less on driving. And then the mobility team is also working on launching this summer the electric shuttle in Pacific Beach. So with this shuttle, now you don't have to worry so much about having to drive all the way to Pacific Beach or struggling to find parking. The radius or locations are still being determined, but hopefully if you are near Pacific Beach, you can just take the shuttle and it will take you there and it's free. And then Pure Water San Diego is a future project or work in progress. And this project is hoping to have a purifying plant that will clean water so it can be reused over again, so it can reduce the amount of water consumption here in San Diego, since we are always in a state of drought, and at the same time we can also reduce our dependency of having to export water from other places. And then lastly, where we are today, the workshops at the different libraries. Our team has been working along with Jacqueline and other library staff to put together these different workshops so we can reach out to different communities throughout San Diego and talk to them about climate action and the work that the city has been doing. So now we do want to share some steps that you can take that can contribute to climate action. So one of them is to try to use the car less. Whenever you have an option to walk, bike, or take transit, always try to go with that option. And then composting your food waste, since we are getting those green bins rolled out to all areas of San Diego. Hopefully more people can learn about what composting is, how the importance of it, and if they didn't have an opportunity to compost before, maybe now they can have the opportunity to do it now. And then turning off the lights whenever they're in a room or in a house, that if they're in a room, they exit the room, always remember to turn off the lights instead of leaving them on, because it happens a lot. And then also just switching to LED efficient bulbs. And then other steps you can take is to try plant-based dishes, or just overall reducing the amount of meat you consume, even just going one day without eating meat. I know a lot of us are doing that now with Lent, so it's possible. And then using old towels or t-shirts instead of paper towels or napkins whenever you're cleaning up a mess in your home. These towels can always be washed and reused over and over again, and it avoids the amount of waste of using like single-use napkins. And then using reusable bottles or utensils whenever you can instead of plastic. So like these kinds of bottles, and it doesn't have to be just bottles, again, utensils, like cups or lids or straws or anything that's reusable, like always opt for that reusable option. And then just spreading the word and talking to your friends or family about climate action and its importance, because it's very important. I know some people sometimes can't attend events like these because they're working or don't have the resources to attend or get here. So it's important to just spread the word, because someone might not know about this and could be interested in learning more about climate action. So now that you guys heard about a lot of the city's efforts, we kind of want to turn it over to you now and ask, how are you already involved in climate action? And it could be the same steps that we mentioned right here, or it could be something completely different. We just want to hear, like, what do you do at home or in your everyday life that, like, you think, like, it contributes to climate action? And it could be like recycling or using the bottle, or it can be anything. We just want to hear a little examples. Yeah.
I'm so concerned about I have to reduce the consumption of meat. Why? I love to eat meat a lot. I love good meat. Why I have to eat? I don't get it. Why?
Because the agriculture industry, where it's a lot of the meat gets processed, a lot of those farm animals do produce a lot of methane gas. So methane gas is a very potent, strong pollutant, and I think it's even more potent than like carbon dioxide. So it does create a lot of pollution. So if everyone were to like reduce the amount of meat they consume, so like if they went one day without eating meat, then the amount of like demand for having so many farm animals would go down.
We talk in respect of the pollution. How can I compare the pollution from the meat and the carbon monoxide coming from the car? That's totally different. What is the degree? How is it? I don't get it. Meat, car, what is the difference in terms of pollution? I don't carry a lot of pollution than the beef.
Yeah, so we got a comment of what about eating meat, or what about the car use? What are the pollution levels from that? And yeah, 100%. They're both contributors to climate change. They both contribute greenhouse gases. So we are not asking you or anyone to change their entire lifestyle. Yeah. So we can't go without, or at least today, we can't go. You can't go and sell your car and completely get rid of it, and you might not want to completely give up meat either. But there are small things that we can do, little changes that we can make. That if you can add those to your daily step, those small changes that all of us can make can add up. So totally hear you, and there's a lot of cultural, social reasons too that you wouldn't want to give up meat. But maybe it's breakfast doesn't have meat, and I bet it doesn't anyway. Or maybe maybe breakfast is without meat, or one meal or so.
Meat production does cut across strategies, because in areas where cattle is a huge deal, like there's a lot of rainforest deforestation in order to provide grazing lands for the cattle. And so that goes into what we would consider strategy 5, right? You're reducing the amount of tree coverage and ability to pull carbon from the atmosphere in order to provide lands to graze cattle. And that is a big deal in other countries, right? That's having massive impact in other countries, not necessarily ours, but those emissions and that loss of the ability to extract carbon from the atmosphere is going to have a global worldwide effect. So it's not only the fact that the agricultural industry is producing carbon, but also we're losing the ability to extract it due to that industry. And again, as these guys said, you don't necessarily have to go cold turkey, but anything that steps us down a little bit is going to help, right? We'll reduce the sheer amount of forest that we have to lose, and we'll reduce the amount of emissions that are going up as a result. So that's a sort of mixed one, and it's not immediately apparent here in San Diego, because again, we don't really have that kind of industry, so it's not a thing that is visible to us.
Other question, why do you want to call the use of gas? I know gas is much cheaper than electricity. Why?
Because burning gasoline actually emits a huge amount of pollutants that are contributing to the warming of the atmosphere. That is a big deal. Generating electricity, even if you're generating electricity in power plants that are using natural gas, it's still more efficient than let me back up. So using an electric vehicle compared to a gasoline-powered vehicle, both of them are responsible for emissions, right? So the gasoline-powered vehicle is releasing pollutants just by its operation, right? An electric vehicle isn't releasing that many pollutants due to its operation, but the electricity that fuels it, the one that you need to charge the battery, that electricity is getting produced in a way that might be releasing pollutants. But if we do a better job of converting our power plants to things that use more solar power, more hydropower, more wind power, and that's what San Diego Community Power is working on, getting electricity from clean sources of energy rather than polluting sources of energy, then that whole cycle of using a vehicle gets much cleaner and you're emitting less stuff, right? So we can see that even in communities here in San Diego. The communities that have had to deal with things like trucking industry, communities near the Port of San Diego, near places where there is a ton of big vehicular traffic like trucks and big construction equipment, those communities have massive health issues that are directly due to the fact that they're exposed to these pollutants all the time. So we are trying to not only reduce the overall global warming problem, but we're also trying to improve the health of those communities by switching out that kind of fuel. So by using a cleaner fuel rather than a dirtier fuel, we're improving people's health and we're improving the environment in general.
These actions here are actually included in the climate action plan. So take a moment to read through those and think. The first question would be, which of these actions are the highest priority in your community? Where do you think is very urgent and your community needs this? We do have a link there for a newsletter if you want to sign up for it. If you haven't signed up or taken the survey, please do so. It's going to help us. Thank you again, everybody.